and welcome to the House of Hammer. I'm Kev Moore, your host for today, and I don't mind saying I've been looking forward to this episode since we had a peep at what was on the way at the beginning of this year. If you want a list of what's to come, or where we've already been, I'll pop a link in the show notes for you. Speaking of links, if you want to get in touch with us, we're all over the place, and all the links for how are in there too. What I'm really loving about this journey through Hammer history is you just never know where you're going to end up next, especially during this phase. Even when it does eventually start hitting it big later on with all the horror, Hammer never stops making some absolute gems that have nothing at all to do with monsters of any kind. Which brings us neatly to our Cold War thriller Breaking the Circle. It sees Forrest Tucker playing Skip Morgan, an American stuck in Cornwall after World War II and trying to make a name for himself by smuggling political refugees out of Soviet-controlled Europe. Baron Keller, played by Marius Goring, is a German millionaire who hires Skip to smuggle Paul Kudnik, a Polish scientist, out of East Germany. Eva Bartok is romance novelist and part-time Interpol agent Lisa, who wants Kudnik turned over to the proper authorities. Skip's not sold on the idea, but takes Lisa along for the adventure of a lifetime anyway. Because it's Eva Bartok after all. And more about Eva from the mononymous Smokey. Just Smokey.
We have, of course, had the pleasure of Eva Bartok's company before, all the way back at the start of the year, in the unconventional but surprisingly entertaining Spaceways. In that film, she played a scientist and professor, so while Break the Circle somewhat hinders her performance by downgrading her to somewhat of a sideshow for Forrest Tucker to yell at and manhandle, the impression she makes on screen meant we couldn't let her second and final appearance for Hammer go by without a proper farewell. Bartok was born Eva Marta Soske Ivanovich on the 18th of June 1927 in Hungary. Following the outbreak of the war, her father, a Jewish journalist, remained in Budapest, while Eva and her mother moved to the south of the city to be with her relatives. Visits from her father were rare and sporadic, and sadly, once the Nazis had appeared, he vanished without a trace. During the time, to avoid persecution as the daughter of a Jewish father, the teenage Bartok was forced into marrying Géza Kovács, a Hungarian officer who had Nazi connections. Kovács disappeared following the occupation of Hungary by the communists. Thankfully, she was able to get her marriage annulled on the grounds of coercion of a minor. Throughout her life, Eva Bartok would marry several more times, and also be embroiled in several high-profile romances. Her second marriage was to the producer Alexander Pahl, who had assisted in her escape from Hungary in 1948. This, however, only lasted a few years and they were divorced in 1951. Marriage number 3 was to English theatrical publicity agent William Wordsworth, who she wed in 1952. Wordsworth was the great-great-grandson of the poet of the same name. Because of their union, Bartok was able to acquire British citizenship. Whether this has anything to do with the claim from William that Eva had deserted him just 1 month into their wedded bliss, we will never know. Despite this statement from her frustrated husband, their divorce was not finalised until 3 years later in 1955. Perhaps another minor issue that may have contributed to their downfall may have been that during a gala dinner in London in 1952, she had met David Mountbatten, the third Marquis of Milford Haven. Their high-profile romance continued for several years. Unfortunately, David was already married, and Bartok was officially cited by his wife in the divorce petition. This relationship was brought to an end when Eva met and married the actor Kurt Jürgens in August of 1955. Once again, this was not to last, as they divorced in November in 1956. Shortly after her marriage to Jürgens had ended, Bartok welcomed the arrival of her daughter Diana in October of 1957. Decades later, after finally telling the story of a brief affair had in 1956, she claimed that Diana was the result of a dalliance with Frank Sinatra, following his breakup with Ava Gardner. Sinatra, however, never acknowledged that he was the father. Her fifth and final marriage came in 1980, when she married the American producer Dag Molen. This lasted a little longer, but they still divorced in 1983. In front of the camera, Eva Bartok's life was a little more successful. Bitten by the acting bug at the age of 6, she frequently performed in school productions, charity events and in galas for wounded soldiers during the Second World War. Following the end of the war, Bartok decided to enter the acting profession and successfully sat an examination at the Drama Centre in Budapest. One of the examiners was the director of a prominent theatre, and he was impressed enough to, in 1945, offer her a 3-year contract. She first appeared in front of the camera in 1947 in the Hungarian film Mece Profeta, which was banned by the communist censors for political reasons. Feeling threatened and persecuted by this new communist regime, she enlisted the help of the aforementioned Pal and fled to London. Her next film appearance was in 1948's A Tale of Five Cities, but due to financial difficulties, it would not see the light of day until 1951. It was at this point that it was noted that her surname of Ivanovic may be something of an issue to Western audiences. Taking the name Bartok from famed Hungarian composer Béla Bartok, Eva was now on her way. In 1951, A Tale of Five Cities was finally released in the United Kingdom. It was seen by actor-producer Burt Lancaster and director Robert Siodmak, who were visiting England looking for an actress to play opposite Lancaster as his romantic interest Consuelo in the upcoming production of the comedy-adventure film The Crimson Pirate. Impressed by Bartok's performance and appearance, they sent her a telegraph asking for her to attend a screen test. Bartok, by now, wary of countless unsuccessful auditions, replied, "No test, send script." To her surprise, she was offered the role and was asked to report for location shooting. The next few years were the most fruitful of Eva's acting career, not only with her 2 Hammer appearances, but also roles in Park Plaza 605 with Tom Conway in 1953, 10,000 Bedrooms with Dean Martin in 1957, and Operation Amsterdam with Peter Finch in 1959. While being treated for ovarian cancer in the late 1950s, Bartok was introduced to the philosophy of Subud. When the career opportunities began to dwindle in the 1960s, she devoted more and more of her time to embracing that particular way of life, going so far as moving to Jakarta to study before finally opening a school in Honolulu, wherein she became a teacher of philosophy. Eva Bartok did eventually return to London, and reportedly spent the last few years of her life as a permanent paying guest in a small hotel, often regaling guests with tales of her vast and varied experiences. She passed away on the 1st of August, 1998 at St. Charles Hospital. She was 71. As is sometimes the case, it's always best to leave these tributes to someone else. Jimmy Sangster, Hammer's production manager, recalled this from the set of Breaking the Circle. Eva was very sweet, a girl who learned her script word for word, including typographical errors. She did the first rehearsal of a scene one day where she was required to shout farewell to some character or another. "Good f***!" she yelled. It took Val Guest 5 minutes to explain to her it was a misprint.
You know, it never clicked with me until now that Eva took her name from Béla Bartok, who was a well-known ethnomusicologist, just like Lloyd Bridges in Third Party Risk. Always so many connections. Released in February 1955 in the UK and held back until 1957 in the US, Breaking the Circle is brought to us by Hammer and Concannon Film Productions. I'd never heard of this company before now and wondered what else they'd worked on, and it turns out the only other release was the Quatermass Experiment. Unlike the dealings with Lippert Pictures, Concannon was in fact one of many Hammer subsidiaries, and it was set up just to help out with the finances. Over the course of its life, Hammer either bought or created a number of subsidiaries for productions and facilities. Falcon Films, for instance, was solely set up just for running Bray Studios, and even that would be used as a production company from time to time. Concannon was most likely created to protect Exclusive's profits from the beady eye of the taxman, because by the end of 1953, the company's turnover was a staggering £100,000, which enabled them to buy the freehold at Bray in the first place. Although it could be seen that Atlanta, Cadogan, Clarion, Cloister Productions, Concannon Recordings, Cormorant, Falcon, Hammer Television, Hawfinch, Hillary, Hotspur, Jackdaw, Key Distributors, Kingfisher, Lorry, Laverstock, Merlin, Saturn Films, Sparrow, Swallow, Travel and Woodpecker were used as a means of protecting Hammer's profits from the taxman. But in the movie industry, it's common practice to set up a subsidiary every time a film is made. That way, the movie itself actually becomes a subsidiary of that parent company. For example, if Warner Brothers decided to make The House of Hammer the movie, they'd form a new subsidiary around that production, so it'd be shielded from any losses that the movie would definitely incur. Now, I'm no business boffin, or any boffin come to think of it, and I wanted to know what the definition of a subsidiary is. And it turns out to be a business that's owned and controlled by another larger company. Subsidiaries most commonly occur when one company buys another, and the parent company will typically own more than 50% of the shares, if shares are involved at all. It's all about the separation of liability. If a film fails, the parent company doesn't take the hit. In the case of Breaking the Circle, Concannon Film Productions may well go bust, and Hammer would carry on regardless. As Concannon went on to Quatermass, it's safe to say the profits were there. When I was going through all these companies, I got quite obsessed with Cadogan Films Limited. It was created in 1957 to help ease copyright negotiations with Universal over the rights to Dracula. And all the artists for Dracula were contracted to Cadogan, except for Christopher Lee, who was contracted directly by Hammer because he was cheaper than Bernard Bresslaw. The name comes from Cadogan Square in London, where it was first registered. This company remained active until the mid-60s, and as well as the aforementioned Dracula, it was also used for The Revenge of Frankenstein and The Man Who Could Cheat Death. Hammer Film Productions ceased to be in August 1978. However, in a clever move, Jackdaw, one of Hammer's many subsidiary companies, was quickly rechristened Hammer Films Limited, so that the company could carry on even if in name only. After all of this, it's still worth noting that Hammer itself started life as a subsidiary of Exclusive Films. Well, I reckon that's enough Billy Big Business talk for today. Let's scuttle off to the boardroom and see what Chairman Smokey, T-Boy Ben and myself have to say about Breaking the Circle.
All right, gentlemen, we have our very first film of 1955.
Way.
We have finally left 1954. We have a wonderful array here of cast members who we have met before. So obviously we have the lovely Eva Bartok, who we saw in Spaceways.
Mm-hmm.
But then also Guy Middleton, who was the nasty Weasley villain in Never Look Back. Don't Look Back? Never Look Back.
It is. Yep.
The wonderful Eric Pullman is back again. Sadly, for very little screen time, which was a damn shame. And of course, Reginald Beckwith back with us as well, which is always lovely to see. However, the lead this time, in what appears to be our never-ending carousel of American actors coming over here for a payday, is Forrest Tucker. Now, he does appear in a future Hammer film of The Abominable Snowman as well. So we're not too far away from that, actually.
No.
First time we see Forrest Tucker, I am going to ask a very blunt question, gentlemen, and we'll go into this more when we talk about a film. Is he, we talked about this before, a trope of unlikable protagonist. Is he the most unlikable protagonist we've ever encountered in a Hammer film?
Easily.
By a country mile. God. I don't even know where to start. He's just a horrible, horrible, misogynistic swine. Oh,
ignorant, arrogant, sexist,
yeah,
horrible man.
He's also useless as well, which is the one thing that came to mind. If you imagine, Kurt Russell's character in Big Trouble in Little China, who thinks he's all that, but he's actually utterly but that character has charm and charisma.
Yeah.
This character is equally useless and also awful.
Yeah, this is true. So obviously we'll have heard the basic story. The IMDb synopsis is: an adventurer is hired by a German millionaire to help a Polish scientist escape to the West. It's pretty basic, but that's kind of what it is. Let's have some just general thoughts on the opening of the film, because we're in Cornwall, looking resplendent.
Yep.
Ben, what did you think about the opening of the film?
I don't have much of a problem with the opening of the film. It's quite tense. Someone's being smuggled across the border, the east-west border after the war, and they're cutting through barbed wire, and he's running, and there's machine guns, and he's loaded into a car. I quite like that. I thought it was, and it's one of the few bits of the film where you think, okay, I don't really need to know the context here. He's obviously escaping there. He's going this way. They're trying to shoot him. Those people are rescued. It. Fine. I can go with that. It's a decent setup. We don't know where he's going. We don't know why he's escaping. All of that information does come to, some of it does come to light later. But no, I thought the opening was one of the stronger bits of the film.
I'll agree with that, Kev.
Yeah, and then it cuts to Cornwall, and the film just instantly dies on its arse.
Agreed.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. But it also, just to go back to what we said just a minute ago, it opens with Forrest Tucker being a misogynistic jerk to Eva Bartok instantly.
Yeah,
and it's like, who is this Pratt that I'm supposed to? Who is he?
Mm-hmm.
You see, Eva Bartok's problematic as well, because her character is a weird relationship for a start off, because at one point when they're talking very early on, she says something like, we agreed there was going to be nothing more like that, and then he just says, no, you agree, you might have agreed, I didn't. And it's kind of, what's going on here? And then immediately he's pouncing on her and he's getting all handsy, and then it's like, I don't understand the relationship at all. It's not like it's a love story, because when they kiss, it's like watching two people fight with their mouths.
The whole relationship is devoid of charm, chemistry, or joy. As
Romance.
you say, Kev, he's either pressing his face on her like hard enough to crack diamonds, or he's roughing her up. Or he's roughing her up verbally. And there's the moments of like love, if you like, or affection appear out of nowhere. And as you say, it feels like she's in, frankly, an abusive relationship.
Yeah,
very much so. Well, I mean, right. There's a moment not too far into the film where she gives him a slap around the face, and it's very well deserved that he gets a slap around the face. But his immediate retort is, "Oh, you're lucky that we're getting to somewhere now, because I'm about to hit you back." Mm-hmm. And it's like,
what is going on?
Oh my God, why do we like? Why are we meant to like this person? He's bloody horrible
and inept.
Yeah,
but apart from that, he's great.
Yeah. And apparently he's an adventurer. It's like an adventurer. I mean, how does he get on any adventures? Because it seems like Reginald Beckwith, without him there, Forrest Tucker would not get anywhere. Skip Morgan is just an absolute waste of time.
Oh yeah, that's a very good point. We should point out that his name is Captain Morgan.
Well, he's a captain because he wears a ridiculous hat for the whole film.
Yes.
Actually,
no, Ben, you look angry.
I am, because it's utterly stupid. All right, and I need to. Maybe we should have done a segment about stupid sailing hats, because when he goes to sea in his stupid boat, he has to wear the stupid hat. But when he goes to London, he gets dressed in civvy clothes. It's like, is there an unwritten or written rule that you've got to dress like a complete prat when you go to sea? Because he appears to be adhering to that, at least.
Well, they do that in Terry and June, so maybe it is the law.
Yeah, I will pick up on something you said there, Kev, though. I actually feel sorry for Eva Bartok and Reginald Beckwith, because they actually put in all right performances.
Yeah.
You know, they're quite... All right, let me change that. They put in quite good performances for what they're given to do. Especially Reginald Beckwith. But I just can't get past the fact that, again, a reoccurrence of something we've had before, is that Forrest Tucker doesn't stop shouting.
Oh, his voice is so irritating. I mean, I thought I used to get annoyed by Don Taylor as Robin Hood and his 40 Rothman voice.
Bring it on.
This is far worse. Worse.
Yeah.
Don Taylor, all is forgiven, basically. I'm saying.
Yeah, thinking about it, he laughs at his own jokes all the time as well.
Oh, well, it's like when you said about the opening scene, and after he's mean to Eva Bartok about her trying to do some fishing, he then like guffaws into the distance for about 30 seconds.
Yeah,
and you're thinking, how much canned laughter do I have to listen to here before we get this film started?
And then he rubs it in by buying her a stuffed fish. I mean, that's a dick move.
And it's not even one of those talking musical ones that used to get in the 90s.
Billy Bass.
Billy Bass, yeah.
They're magic.
They really are. If he bought one of those, I might have liked him a bit better.
The thing that going back to his unlikability, though, the director's got to take some of the blame here because he is a capable actor, and I think the character he portrays would have been absolutely fine in a film that didn't have a love interest if he wasn't trying to get you to believe he's the kind of man who could charm a woman. If it was like a Dirty Dozen or a war film if that entire element was missing, then we wouldn't be sat here having a go at him. It's just either he couldn't do it or he was directed really badly. But it's just it ruins the film, and the film isn't great to begin with.
I obviously don't know the guy, personally, Forrest Tucker, but to me it just came across as of him saying to who directed it. It was Val Guest, wasn't it? Who directed this one?
Yeah, he wrote it as well.
Of a cocky American actor going, "This is how I'm playing it," because no one else plays their role like he does.
No.
When they could have done easily. And so it's just mind-boggling why he thinks this is... right, there's a scene later on when they're in... him and Eva Bartok are in a phone box, right? And they're making a call. And he yells every single line of his dialogue, and she doesn't. And she doesn't need to. And
no, they're in a phone box.
Yeah, but he yells every single line. And it's... Oh, God! It really, really frustrated me.
Maybe... Maybe he just had a really loud bang next to his ear one day and he's just been shouting the whole filming of this.
One of those depth charges on the boat. And his head.
One of the Chekhov's depth charges.
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
God.
Very much so. Yeah. Okay. So let's go into this a little bit. As you say, we start off, we have... the war moment at the beginning, then we go into Cornwall, then we get into the sort of the espionage side of it, of where he has to go to Hamburg to help this scientist escape. Basically, that's our basic plot line. Surely the most fundamental issue of this is that this is, we should point out, our second longest Hammer film ever, just slightly under Cloudburst. But surely the biggest problem about this is that in the middle of this film, nothing happens.
Yeah, it's an incredibly simple plot. Is that, man who used to had sort of, during the war, it was his job to get across enemy lines and effectively smuggle things in and out. And now the war's ended. He does it for money, obviously, but he's like an adventurer. That's his. So all he has to do is go to Hamburg, get this guy and bring him back. And that's it. That's all you really need to know. And even when you count into the plot the fact that he does encounter some problems, not really very many, and it basically some other people get there first and steal the man he's after is what happens. And all of that takes an hour, and it's bookended by, as you say, things you just think, well, I really, especially the last 20 minutes where I made a note of him. I think, so how can there be 20 minutes of this left? They've got the man now. They're on the boat. Surely. No, it's mass. Again, you've got to blame. Give some blame to the production team, the director, the editor. Because there's just scenes in this film that just don't. You just think, come on, man, this doesn't need to be here. Cut this out. Get it down to 70 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so much deliberate padding. I mean, there's Guy Middleton, who plays Major Hobart, who I'm sure was actually trying to make his role a bit meatier just by giving himself extra lines. Because at one point, he actually says to Morgan that he needs to go to this meeting in London tomorrow. And rather than him just give him the address on a piece of card or something like that. No, it describes the building. He says, "Oh, it's a big office building. It's upstairs, second on the left. It's opposite Big Ben." And I'm thinking, you would have been a lot easier to just give him the address, not describe. Who ever says I'm at the house in the middle of the street with a green door on it? You know, you just say it's number 82.
It's so timely that you mentioned this, Kev, is because Ben and I recorded about Pursuit to Algiers last night, and something happens at the beginning of that film which could have been infinitely made it tighter and a shorter film, but it was much more enjoyable at the start of that movie than it was for this one. I'm sure you can agree with that one, Ben.
Well, everything about that film was more enjoyable than this one. The fact that it ended 28 minutes earlier for a start.
Yeah, that's true. I don't. Where do you want to go with this? I mean, for me, this is possibly one of the trickiest films we've done for Hammer to really do one of these roundtables on, because the positives are so, for me personally, are so few and far between.
I can chip in with a positive if you like.
I've got a couple.
Let's hear some positives.
A huge proportion of the film is shot on location, and I thought that was ambitious, and I thought it made the film really benefited from that. I thought the Cornwall setting at the beginning was really nice. I thought the fact that they genuinely took to the streets of Hamburg was lovely, and London as well. Well, London they might not have been there, but we got a bit of stock footage of that. And then they had this sort of a couple of industrial settings. So there was a fist fight on a slag heap at one point, which was very good. You know, and a bit of riverside action. You know, when it's the first Hammer film, right, that features a boat where you can genuinely believe a boat was involved, as opposed to just somebody wobbling a set about and a bit of stock footage of some water. You know, it actually felt like we were on the sea, which was quite nice.
To be fair, Jack of Diamonds did have an actual boat in it as well. So, you know, that was a long time ago, though. So I will give it a little credit.
That was only because the producer wanted a boat.
I know. I know. But I'm just give it a little credit. But no, I completely agree. Also, IMDb is saying that some of it was filmed in Paris, which I'm not sure if that's correct, but because everything is pointing to Cornwall.
IMDb's drunk.
Yeah, I know, it's a bit weird. I will point out a couple of things that I enjoyed. Is who knew that we would once again see a last ditch car getting onto a ferry before it pulled away.
Oh, that was good. Yeah.
yeah.
I know, Ben, your anxiety hit the last time that happened.
Yeah, well, it was. Yeah, I was all right this time. I don't know why. I was slightly.
It wasn't as quick.
No, it wasn't. You're right. It wasn't as quick. Yeah, maybe the water didn't look as deep either.
I think you might be right. Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the first time we get, a helicopter pursuit, that was kind of cool.
The helicopter was great. Love the helicopter.
Kev, how about some positives, my friend?
I'm just thinking the James Bond film with the helicopter pursuit. That was very
I don't remember
evocative.
The helicopter pursuit.
Yeah, James Bond on the helicopter pursuit.
I like it.
I can't remember which film it is. It's one of the early Sean Connery Bonds, anyway.
Was it Thunderball?
Possibly.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember. They all sort of meld into one.
Yeah, that'll do.
But yeah, there's the helicopter pursuit. There's the flaming truck, which
That's great.
I mean, God, the stunts on this particular film are off the chain. You've got one part where Forrest Tucker actually falls off a roof. His stuntman does. He slides off a roof and straight down 2 stories, and you think, good grief, man. There's no crash mats or anything. He's just doing it.
Stunt.
Yeah. So he was just going for it. I thought, well played, nice. So the action is brilliant. It's just the fact that it's put in there just to pad it out that makes it really annoying. Eva Bartok, again, I feel like she's underused. And again, she's playing a character called Lisa.
Yes, she is. Yeah. And also it was the fact that I was, as I said, I felt bad for her.
Yeah.
Because she's got talent, she does. And to see her also, especially at the end, sort of kind of fall more for Captain Morgan, it's just sort of like, why?
Why?
He has done nothing to earn this.
He's actually kidnapped her at one point.
Yes.
He's actually held her against her will in another country.
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of Stockholm syndrome has she got?
He also choked her at one point. Remember when she said,
Yes.
I can't breathe because you're choking me. Great.
Choked her at one point. She gets a hand gag at least twice in the film. Yeah, she's not treated particularly well.
Maybe that's her kink.
Well, isn't it for everyone? But I just felt bad for her, But hey ho, there we go.
Can I just return to the helicopter for one moment?
Yeah,
of course you can.
Because the helicopter, to the listener who may not have seen this, is involved as a pursuit. Okay, first of all, they're chasing the helicopter, then the helicopter turns and chases them, which is great. But I can just see in the script, slight spoilers, it obviously said, and then the helicopter blows up. And they obviously sat around and thought, well, we're not blowing a real helicopter up, are we? So what you get instead is the camera moves to a sign that basically says, there's some power lines here. And then you just get someone off screen going, and we're to believe that the helicopter blew up, but no one saw it happen. Yeah, no one saw it happen. Yeah.
No,
they definitely couldn't afford to show that blowing up on screen.
No,
so
absolutely.
I mean, of all the things to occur off screen,
the flaming helicopter would have been
exploding helicopter
would have been really good. Yeah, and also the fact that the helicopter blew up because the two men inside it were fighting over the whatever you call the joystick or whatever it is that you used to fly a helicopter with. So yeah, it was a bit of a bungling baddie moment.
The guy who wasn't the pilot thought he knew better than the pilot.
Yeah,
and that's why it crashed.
Serves him right.
It does.
Dirty Russians.
Their helicopters.
Yeah.
Yeah. We should also I want to point out, not like it's just, a broken record, but Forrest Tucker is so bloody horrible. And so he gets captured, he gets knocked out, and he gets locked in like a bunker.
I thought it was a toilet at first, like an outside toilet.
Yeah.
It's like a cupboard, isn't it? Put him in the cupboard. And I also genuinely as well, I'm not just saying this as a joke, I thought they were going to put him in the bin when they carried him out the back, because they carry him out the back of this house and it's like bins and rubbish. And I thought they were going to put him in the dustbin.
That would have been better. That would have been better. But no, my point is that Eva Bartok sees all this going down, and once the villains leave, she goes to rescue Captain Morgan. She gets in the bunker and she unties him and takes his gag out and whatnot. He never says thank you.
No.
He calls her stupid.
Yes.
And that also, if she even ventures outside that door, she's going to get shot. And it's like, she has just rescued you, sunshine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Gratitude, empathy, anything? No.
The thing is, when she rescues him, rather than him actually shut up and be quiet, because obviously there still might be the people that put him in the cupboard under the stairs actually around. So, but no, as soon as she turns up, it's like, all right then. It's like, what?
He just starts yelling
Shut
again.
up!
Yeah, but he tells her to shut up. And it's like, no, pal. Dial your, wind your neck in a little bit, pal, and realise how loud you're being, you little.
Yeah, no idea of stealth.
No. God, could you imagine asking him to be stealthy? Jeez.
I did like Eric Pullman again turning up as with John Rhys Davies in the Indiana Jones films.
Oh, right.
Practically the same role.
Gotcha.
A facilitator of things. He's there to facilitate. He's
comic
and get
relief
lots of
and
money.
Exposition and moving the plot
Yeah.
forwards. Yeah.
Literally in a truck.
Well, yes.
On fire. Yeah.
I think we're coming to the consensus that the best thing out in this film is the vehicles, the boat, the truck, the helicopter.
The flaming truck pursued by the helicopter is the high watermark of this film, and I'm not even going to pretend otherwise.
Yeah, so boat, truck, helicopter, ferry. Yeah, I think we're covering all the bases for vehicles in this one. I honestly don't have a massive amount to say about the rest of the film. I don't know if you guys do. This for me is just frustrating that it's this long.
There's a plot twist halfway through which is really wasted because it's kind of accidentally drip fed to you that Eva Bartok is actually working for the police. Because she's supposed
the way he discovers that, by the way, is wonderful.
Because she's supposed to be a writer, in this at the beginning, but I'm not so convinced about that. But it turns out that her father was killed by Russians. And so she was, and I'm not sure that this passes the human resources test for the 21st century. She was given her father's job after he was shot with the police. And so she's been working with them to try and basically work out what Morgan has been smuggling and basically stop him or get him arrested or something. Because we're not
a spy.
We're not led to believe that she was really in on this, the whole plot of getting this Polish man back to wherever. She just basically wanted to know what Morgan was up to, and she was going to have him when he
one way or the other.
Yeah, when he got by. Yeah, probably both. It's the very James Bond, isn't it?
Yeah,
the spy who slapped me. Yeah. But it's all wasted, partially because it's in a stretch of the film where the sound's so bad you can only hear every sort of fifth word that she's saying. But also because it's all very matter of fact. It's you're okay, so you work for the police, or whatever. I don't really care. Pass the rubber ring. I'm going to rename the boat. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's something else as well. He calls the boat Duchess because he keeps insisting on calling Lisa Duchess. Yeah. And then later on, he's got the Polish scientist who is obviously somebody that is very top of his field.
Yeah, like a world expert in polymerization. Yeah.
That's it, polymerization, which can do at least 6 times more powerful. It's like he just thought of a number there. He had no idea what he would talk. Script, no, forget it. 6 times, that'll do. Yeah. But yeah, he's got this renowned physician and he's calling him Pops all the time. Pops.
Because he's old, you see, Kev. Pops.
Oh, yeah, great. I'm glad that doesn't stick.
But, adding to that, though, Kev, as you say, the calling her Duchess, calling him Pops, doesn't that just add to the arrogance of the man?
Yeah.
And it's, and again, it doesn't give you a reason to like him at all.
No.
What is it with these films? What is it with these films when they're giving us our hero, our protagonist, and you can't stand them? Isn't this problematic?
I guess for whatever reason, it was felt that this 50s audience this was the type of person they wanted depicted. That's all I can think is that, sensibilities have changed so massively that, what audiences want to see. I mean, you could, without going off on a tangent, you could make the case now that, the TV is populated by people who, if you actually strip it back, are genuinely quite unpleasant. How many of these talent shows are actually just people getting bullied for several weeks by, egomaniacal, well, I can't swear on this podcast, but you can fill in the blanks for yourself, listener.
Yeah.
But I mean, you strip it back and take it out of context and that as well. And you might think, well, why do we promote these people to such, sort of lofty status? So, I'm not excusing it, mate. No. I completely agree. He's abhorrent, and I wish he'd sat on his own depth charge. But yeah, it's just one of those things, isn't it? Yeah.
I guess so.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of. You've got echoes of, like you said, Jack Burton. You've also got Han Solo and stuff like that.
Han Solo was the other one I thought of, without the charm, charisma, and that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, but
he had a heart.
That's the thing. Yeah, that's what's missing from this.
Yeah.
All I can think of is I think the reason it's got such a strange, uneven plot shaping is because it's based on a book, and Val Guest has obviously been coming to sort of try and adapt the book as quick as possible. And obviously, your narrative in a book, you can do so much different things. You don't have to stick to a 3-act structure, whereas in a film that's an hour and a half long, you'd need to have a bit more form to it to actually keep it entertaining.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Anything else before we move on to final thoughts and some ratings, gentlemen?
I'll add my next thought to my final thoughts, as it's one of the few highlights of the film.
Okay, fair dues. All right then. Well, let's go on to that then. Well, let's just kick off straight with you, Ben. Then final thoughts and a rating for this thing. Breaking the circle.
It's too long. It's too long, and he's awful. Are the two real problems with this film. And it's that overshadows the entire thing, and it's not a great film. I enjoyed it slightly more the second time round simply because I had a better idea about what was going on. But yeah, it's grim. It gets 3 out of 10 for me. But I am going to leave you with the highlight, which is that at the end of the film, everyone ends up the scientist guy, Morgan, the Duchess. They all end up on this boat with the people who gave him the original job, which was to go out and get this guy back. And anyway, it turns out that he's not the guy. He doesn't promise what he said he was going to promise. Anyway, there's a bit of shooting and someone gets shot. But then someone else, the death of one of the people is absolutely hilarious.
Yes,
because he says basically, go out there and make sure the boat's all right. So he goes out there. So he wobbles the boat and the guy falls off and dies. And it's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I was howling the first time I saw it.
Yeah.
So that is, if you've got anything to endure this film to the last closing minutes for, it's the death wobble, is all I'm saying.
Fair enough. There is a reason I'm going to go last on this, and it'll become clear shortly. But Kev, your final thoughts and a rating, please, my friend.
I think I've just about said everything I need to say about this film. This film is one of the... I think it's the first time I've never actually gone for a third go through to do notes. I've got no notes this time because I just could not bear the thought of going back through it again. I'm going to have to go back through it again as it is, just to sort me rest of me bit out, but it gave me a headache. I just don't like this film at all. So it has got some great action sequences, which is the only thing I can really take away from this. And yeah, it's got a lot of scope. And I suppose you do get it pointing the direction of where spy films will go, because this is certainly up there as far as cutting edge, at that particular time. And it's good to see him actually sort of break into the Cold War kind of spy stuff, like the John le Carré stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just awful. I can only give it 2. And it's
we broke Kev.
Kev's run out of batteries.
Kev's powering down. We need to get the port to reboot him. Okay, that's fair enough. Right. The reason I'm going last is because it suddenly struck me, and I was going to open this round table with it, and I thought, well, I can't do that, so I'll save it to the end. Which is, I'm going to make a statement, which is going to sound a bit weird, but bear with me, is that I'm angry at Hammer for this film because you look at the last few films we've done, right? All right, I'm cherry picking here, but bear with me. So, Mask of Dust, not the best film in the world at all, but they were trying something different. They stuck it on a racetrack. They had cars going around and whatnot. Men of Sherwood Forest, again, not the great film, but we're in a forest. We're in a castle. They're trying something different. First film in colour, right? And then even, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, but even going back to the Lions double bill, they're trying something different. Okay, they're going to Paris in one of them, or they have a falling down house and they're trying comedy. This is good. This is a company moving forward. And what do they do with this? They go back to a weird noir. No, actually, it's not even close to a noir. A weird melodramatic drama intrigue spy thing, which we have seen before, done marginally better, but they've been here before. And I am really annoyed at Hammer for making me sit through this because they were trying, and even with something like, say, third-party risk, or even the Unholy Four, right? They were doing a murder mystery set in one location. It didn't work, but they were trying. With this, what have they done? They've gone to Cornwall, they've gone to Germany. That's all they've done. And they've taken a lackluster material, and I'm guessing that this is even worse than the book, because I'm never going to read it. But I'm guessing it's that, and I'm really annoyed at Hammer at the moment.
I think it is worth stressing that if you took out the fact that it's shot on location and the fact they've got a helicopter, it genuinely feels like you've gone back in time 20, 30 years. Between what we're watching now and what we've seen before.
I couldn't agree more, Ben. That was going to be my next point. It was saying, it's like we're back to the start of the 1940s again.
Yeah.
And we're not. We've just gone into 1955. And it's annoying and it's frustrating. And I've been flip-flopping between a 2 and a 3 because I think this is diabolical. I think the only reason I'm going to give it a 3 is for Eva Bartok and Beckwith. I think they're good, and we get a burning van and a helicopter. So
burning van's a star on it.
Burning van's great.
Yep.
But no, this is a bad film, and I would just like to finish off by saying this is never ever going to be one of our screenings. Ever.
After breaking the circle nearly breaking us, I thought it only fair to find some contemporary reviews that might be more positive. There weren't any to be found, unfortunately, although one reviewer said, great location scenes at Polperro, Cornwall, and very typical of its time. It catches the flavour of England and Cornwall in the 50s, and the hero is a proper smart and tough individual. Before going on then to give it a more generous 4 out of 10. There are the usual expected variations to be found between the book and the film adaptation, but in this particular book, Alan Morgan takes his boat on a secret adventure with high stakes in Germany, all the while pursued by Scotland Yard for minor crimes he may or may not have committed. Whilst on board, he discovers Linda, a stowaway, who eventually becomes his girlfriend and the love of his life. And you see, this plotline immediately rids the film of some really problematic choices, but also reduces the amount of screen time Eva Bartok would have. And let's face it, that'd be as mad as giving Judi Dench an Oscar for 8 minutes screen time. Adapting a book to a film is a perilous adventure indeed, and if there's one man that knows all about adventures and adventurers, it's our man of many letters, Ben Taylorson.
Now, the online synopsis for Breaking the Circle describes Captain Skip Morgan as an adventurer. During the roundtable, as you'll have heard, we touched on this, and how we felt that he fell somewhat short in terms of the characteristics we might expect a movie adventurer to have. This got me thinking more generally about adventurers in films. Initially, I thought this was quite a narrow definition, and thus I thought this segment would be pretty easy to write. But the more I think about it, the broader the definition gets. After musing on it for a while, I came up with a list of characters that embody some of the traits of an adventurer. This included Phileas Fogg, Tarzan, Robin Hood, Robinson Crusoe, Dick Tracy, Dick Barton, Dorothy Gale, the Three Musketeers, the Goonies, Sarah in the Labyrinth movie, Dora the Explorer, Jack Burton, Snake Plissken. Or how about movies such as 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, or Moby Dick, or Journey to the Centre of the Earth? I guess you can add Captain Skip Morgan to this list, sort of, kind of, possibly, maybe. But this hesitance on my part has led me to properly consider what characteristics are required by an on-screen character to be regarded as an adventurer in the purest sense. Having thought about it, I would argue the character needs to possess all of the following 12 traits. Number 1. Fundamentally, be on a quest for something. Treasure is the first thing that comes to mind, be it a golden idol or an emerald the size of a fist. But it could be the quest for, say, information, or a person, as in the case of Breaking the Circle. Well, I'd argue it could be, but it kinda depends on the motive. Which brings us to point 2, the adventurer as a romantic. And I don't mean in terms of wooing the opposite sex. I mean in terms of being idealistic as regards the quest. And this makes them noble and likeable, because they have trait number 3, insomuch that they ultimately do the right thing in the end, ensuring that justice is done and good prevails, which means we want them to succeed. Now I say ultimately doing the right thing owing to trait 4, which is a cynical exterior, which may lead to others doubting initially their character or not knowing if they're trustworthy. This goes hand in hand with trait 5, arrogance. There's a fine line between confidence and arrogance, but one thing is for sure: every adventurer must believe in themselves and their abilities, even when others do not. And they have good reason to, owing to trait number 6. These are movie characters, of course, so they have to have near superhuman abilities to fight, swim, climb, swing, run, dodge, and in some cases, fly. Basically, you've got to be as hard as nails. All of which require our adventurer to have our 7th trait, bravery. But it's no good just being brave, you've also got to have number 8, intelligence. You've got to be quick-witted, apply knowledge, and learn from your mistakes. And sometimes you've got to apply that intelligence with trait number 9, stubbornness. And there's no point being right in a crisis when doubted by all others if you can't remain, number 10, calm. Keeping that heart rate low as the temple collapses or the baddies swarm is vital. And you've also got to be able to, 11, play detective, work out riddles, solve puzzles, uncover crimes. And this brings us to our final trait, number 12, you must be able to do all this as a lone wolf. Play by your own rules. I mean, I say this, but there's usually a sidekick or a love interest in there somewhere, but when it comes down to it, the adventurer has to be able to walk their own path. Now, thinking about those traits, how many movie characters can you think of that fit that mould in terms of checking off all of those characteristics? There aren't many. The obvious one is Indiana Jones. But I'd also argue there's Rick O'Connell from the Mummy movies, Alan Quatermain from King Solomon's Mines, Lara Croft from the Tomb Raider movies, Nathan Drake from the Uncharted movie, Jack T. Colton from Romancing the Stone and the Jewel of the Nile, Benjamin Gates from the National Treasure movies, and Han Solo from Star Wars. I'm sure there are others out there, but as you can see from what I've described, it's a pretty niche definition. Lots of people wearing brown and beige, getting sweaty in sandy places. One thing is for certain though, by my definition, Skip Morgan isn't really an adventurer, he's just a man with a boat doing things for money. He's not noble, or romantic, or calm, or intelligent, and he doesn't even wear beige. He's just a shouty man with a boat and a stupid little hat.
When we started this great adventure, we knew the road ahead would have the odd pothole. After all, no film studio has ever had a roster beyond reproach, and hopefully you'll stick with us as we recover from this one with Dane Clark in the ultimate Morning After the Night Before film. Until then, if you do find yourself wanting for yet more Hammer Waffle from us, head on over to our Patreon at patreon.com/househammerpod, where the hidden room is overflowing with extra goodies. But for now, it's goodbye.
From me, Smokey.
From me, Ben Tillison.
And me, Kev Moore.